Does anybody have any questions, thoughts, issues, concerns? I think what we'll do is there were several things that we didn't get to last time on this one, and all this stuff builds and kind of ties in, and it's a good reminder. So I'll do a little bit of this, and then I'll skip ahead to where we stopped last time, just to bring us up to speed, and then we'll carry on a little bit with tonight, and then kind of wrap things together. So first of all, recapping the circles of life, which is always a good idea because it brings it more into our awareness the more we hear it. The whole conversation that we're having is about the components that ultimately determine the self. And what we're talking about in basic concepts, we're talking about the body, the mind, and the spirit, and how these three components overlap and interact in every element of our life. And as we learn and become more aware of these different components, we're able to adjust imbalances in our lives. We're able to, use our mind to help heal our body, use our body and our spirit to help heal our mind or our soul, and these things are interacting and ongoing throughout the ebb and flow of our daily life. In addition, we talk about, aside from the elements of body, mind, and spirit, we talk about the way to adjust these three different areas in the components of choice, experience, and perception, and how these three elements, our choices, ultimately are driven by our perceptions. And as our perceptions drive our choices, we then experience outcomes from the choices that we make. And through this interaction, as we move through these things, we begin to understand that our experience and the experiences we have with others, the experiences we have from outcomes, ultimately works to shape and change our perception, the way we see something, the way we think about something, the way we're able to open up to something and see it from a new angle, then allows us to make new choices. The new choices that we make then allow us to have new or improved experiences, which changes the way we're experiencing life. Ultimately, in a circular fashion, these turn within each other, and we find that we can rebalance body, mind, and spirit. Ultimately, our goal, of course, is to have them operating in balance at this centermost element of functionality, where they're operating in unison, where your body is in balance with your mind and your spirit. You feel healthy, you feel happy, you have energy, you're vibrant, you're up and going, and in that form, we say we have balance. In the same way, if you are happy and experiencing joy and the life that you want to experience, you will find that your perception and beliefs are in alignment with the choices that you're making, and the choices that you're making are bringing you the experiences that you want to experience, so they are also in balance. And that brings us happiness, that brings us joy, that brings us successful outcomes. And all of this is how we try and function and focus on life. What we find is that when one of these elements rotates out of balance and is not congruent with the other two, we keep making the same choice over and over and over, expecting or wanting a different experience, and we're not getting what we want to experience. Therefore, we get frustrated, we get mad, we get angry, we get irritated. And what we're not understanding is that there is something out of alignment with the choices, the experiences, or the way we're seeing an event. If we're looking at an event from the wrong perception or from the wrong angle, we will make choices that we think should bring us what we want. But what we find is that we're not getting brought to what we want, because the perception that we have is we're looking at it wrong. We're looking at the situation backwards. Once we change our perception, then we're able to make different choices, which aligns it with the experience and the perception, and we are then rebalanced, reharmonized. This little basic model applies to everything that you can put on a circle in life. And so with that said, you can each examine areas of your life that aren't the way you want them to be. And through that, you can say, well, how do I see this situation? Is there a better way? Is there a more positive way? Is there a happier way? Is there a more productive way for me to view this event or this situation? I always inquire and ask people to try to take a situation where you're focused on seeing the negative. And just for a minute, take the opposite stance. And as we go to my circle theory, if you're seeing an event from here, and let's say that we call this side negative and this side positive, no matter what the event is that you've experienced or that you're experiencing, the way you're seeing a situation, if you're seeing it negatively and all you can see are the negative outcomes of it, what I'm asking of you is to take a moment, settle your emotions, relax, easy does it, and through self-talk, what's going on? What are you feeling? Identifying the feeling that I'm having. Why are you feeling that way? What is it inside of you that's perpetuating this angst, this fear, this jealousy, this upset, this anger? And by this self-talk, you're able to identify what it is you're bothered by, what it is you're experiencing that is the negative emotion or feeling that you don't want to experience. And then I want you just simply to ask yourself, well, what would be a better way? What would be a more productive way? What would be a more positive way for me to experience or look at or perceive this particular situation? And so as we start putting things on the circle, what we understand is that all of these things are interconnected. The very same event can happen right before or to each and every one of us. One of us is going to look at the positive aspects of it. They call it the glass half full. Another of us may look at it, the negative aspects. Oh my God, this is going to ruin everything. The glass half empty. And so the perception that you take into a situation as the observer of any event in your life will determine how you perceive it. And so if you are typically one who is negative, you see what's wrong in all the situations that come up. Oh, you can't do that because that's wrong and this is why, and blah, blah, and you have all these reasons. You're going to be irritated, you're going to be frustrated, you're going to be always looking for a fix to the situation. And the problem or the situation may be beyond your control to fix or to change. Where does that leave you? It leaves you in a perpetual state of uncomfort, of unrest, of irritation, of constantly fighting and struggling and striving to make change in an area that is beyond your control. So instead, what we need to do is we need to look at the way we're looking at the situation. Okay, well, if this is the way it is, people call this making lemonade out of lemons, right? Every one of the sayings that you've ever heard is akin to what we're talking about in this model. We're looking at things through the light of love as opposed to through fear and anger and negativity. We're trying to become more positive as opposed to being more negative or pessimistic. And as we do these things, we're able to adjust our perceptions, our thoughts, the choices that we make. Subsequently, the experiences that we have and how life unfolds for us. And in this way, we become artisans of our own life. We become the captain of our own ship. And we get to determine what we think. We each get to determine what we feel, how we feel, how we choose to react to a given situation. So you ask me, well, how is it that we get this way in the first place? We're trained throughout life. Parents, brothers, sisters, situations, people that influence us. If you're raised with somebody who's always seeing the bad or the negative in something, the chances are you have seen that so many times, you've been trained to think and see the bad in things or the problems in things. If you live with someone who as you grew up, worried about everything, how are you likely to be? You're likely to be worried about everything. And if you're worried about everything and the bad going wrong, or you're worried about every situation having a negative outcome, what kind of life are you going to have? You're always going to be worried. You're always going to be missing joy. You're always going to be missing or forsaking opportunity. If I'm afraid something bad's going to happen, I may be afraid to do something that I want to do because I don't want things to go wrong, because right now things are tolerable and they're okay. And so I may remain stagnant or stuck. And as we all know, the soul is equivalent to water. In the Rocky Mountains, the water running down the mountain is cold and crystal clear. And as it gets down to the base and it flows out, eventually it gets out into the plains where it pools and becomes stagnant. That same water that was crystal clear and cool running down a mountain, drinkable, is now rancid, would now make you sick. It's putrid. It smells. This is the same thing that happens to a soul that gets stagnant, that stops. People get depressed. People lose their zest for life. These kinds of things, because we're made to evolve, to grow, to change, to experience new things, to reach new heights, to try new things, to fill ourselves with joy, with excitement, with love. This is the whole process of fulfillment and energetic. I think I've talked to you about one of my favorite philosophical prophecies, which is, I guess, akin to psychology, called existentialism. The whole principle behind this is they found through tests and trials, it was actually researched first in the Nazi concentration camps. The bottom line is that what is the meaning and purpose in your life? If you have meaning and purpose, if you feel like your life is meaningful in your work and your love and your family and you have purpose, you're going to have joy. You're going to feel invigorated. If you feel like you have no meaning, what's the point? There's no purpose to my life. There's no purpose to my job. There's no purpose to my being. There's no meaning to what I'm doing. You're going to start feeling, what's the point? And as you start feeling what's the point, your thoughts are then going to gravitate towards why bother? It's not worth it. It doesn't matter. It has no meaning. Nobody appreciates it anyway, and so on. What's your experience in that state of mind, in that state of thinking going to be? You're going to experience depression, perhaps anxiety, perhaps a lack of joy, all of which are things that we all I think we would all like to avoid in our life. And I just want you to understand that when you feel these negative conditions coming upon you, when you feel yourself gravitating towards the negative side of an event, you have the ability to stop. Time out. Why am I getting negative? Why am I feeling anxious? Why am I upset? Why am I letting this other person's actions bother me so? Why am I letting this event cause me so much frustration and so much anger and agitation? And at that moment, you begin to have awareness, self-awareness. You begin to be able to analyze what, why, how, and make choices to move yourself away from the negative side, back towards the middle point, and if you choose, further over to the positive side. Now, I'll give you a quick example. Every single one of biblical teachings, whether they be Old Testament or New Testament, all of these things, they talked about thoughts, they talked about attitudes, they talked about ways of being to become more spiritually enlightened, more aware. Buddha talked about overcoming suffering. Where does suffering live? It lives in the mind. If you decide to let something rule your life that is a negative event, no matter what it is, no matter where it came from, you're going to experience suffering. How would you overcome such suffering? Every single one of us has bad things happen. Every single one of us has pain and suffering. Every single one of us has an event that we would deem to be life-altering, perhaps in a very negative way. But we each get to choose what we do with it. We each get to choose how much effect and how much impact we let that have on our life, throughout our life, for years and years and years and years. I know this myself, and I teach you this because this happened to me. I was living in that negative mind, trying to control all of these events, blaming situations and problems and events. And one day I had an awakening that changed my entire viewpoint. The way I looked at everything was altered so dramatically that I laughed at the man I used to be and now saw everything completely different, and it changed every aspect of my life and my being. And through this, that's why I created this and why I teach it to you, because we all fall victim to our inner creature, the darkness, the dark voice, the negative voice. We all do it. We all get into that space where we get mad or irritated with someone and we just can't seem to let it go. We all fall into that space where we just don't feel we're good enough or we don't feel we're worthy and we can't seem to let it go. We all fall into this place where we have this voice inside of us that tells us, yeah, you're no good, you're not worth it, you're not worthy. And this other one that says, yes, you are, you deserve this, you're the one. Which voice we listen to is up to us, because we all have the dualistic nature of man as written about by every scribe that's ever written. We all have the dark, the negative, and the light and the positive. Each and every one of our beings is comprised of these two things. With that, I equate the light, the inner light, the light of love, the divine essence, the divine presence, whatever you would like to call it, into levels of conscious awareness. Getting pretty good at freehanded circles, aren't I? And so into these different levels of conscious awareness, what we find is that we go through progressions naturally through life. Unless, if we're not balanced, we'll get stuck. We won't grow. We won't progress into the inner circles. Naturally, on the outside circle, biblically this was referred to as the outer kingdom. This outer circle is the place where we see events and we feel like we're an isolated, independent observer watching things happen out there. We see ourselves as being disconnected and different from everything. It's an I mentality. Out here, level 1 consciousness, it's about I. It's about me. It is an egocentric nature when we're living at level 1 consciousness. In this way, when things happen out here that distort or disturb my I-ness, my me-ness, I get upset. I get bothered. When things out here, if we do the same thing, and we have positive on one side and negative on the other, when I'm on the first level of consciousness and positive things happen to me, yay, look at me, I'm the best, I'm the greatest, yippee, right? We feel uplifted, we feel good. But just as quickly, something negative, something bad comes along and happens, and it rocks us and takes us zooming out of that positive consciousness and out of that happiness and that joy that we're in, and it takes us and catapults us over to negativity. It catapults us over into the feelings of gloom and doom and the other issues that cause us pain and suffering. Can you relate to this? Are you with me? This is level 1 consciousness. Every single one of us goes through this. Every single one of us has experienced this. And this is what most of us battle. And at some point along this journey, we travel into the second level of consciousness. The second level of consciousness is called, biblically, it's referred to as the inner kingdom. Because we're not focused on the outer world, we're now focused on the inner world. The inner world is the one that lives in our thoughts. It's the one that lives in our mind. It's the one that lives inside of each and every one of us as the control commander of our lives. At this particular moment, the second level is about mind, and it is about me or I with controls. Meaning, at the second level of consciousness, you have an impact consciousness. Meaning, you know that you can do something that will please you and feel really good, but you have lived enough on this mental world and had enough experience that you also know that, ooh, I really would like to do this, but that really doesn't impact my friend, my brother, my mother, my significant other, my employer, it doesn't impact other people well. So therefore we have a choice. right? The choice is, do I go ahead and be, yeah, screw it, I'm going back to level 1 consciousness, I'm making this choice for me? Or do we go ahead and function at level 2 consciousness, which is, you know what? That's not right, I'm not going to do that. I can pass, I can find another way. And so at level 2 consciousness, we have a conscience. We have a rational conscience being that we're in touch with at the second level of consciousness. So we basically go from I and me, and it's all my world, and it's all about me. Think about it as a child. Mine, mine, mine. What do we have to do? We have to teach them to share, usually with consequences, in order to reinforce that. But we end up ultimately teaching about sharing. We end up teaching about, you can't do that, that's not nice, you can't hurt him like that. About impact on others, otherness, outward focus and inward focus. It's a combination. At level 1, I and me, we're all focused internally on what we want. It's all about us. At level 2, we still want what we want, but we're considerate of the impact on others. So, this, unfortunately, the drama between the first and second levels of consciousness is what causes us our pain and our suffering. If you stayed at level 1 and all you ever thought about was I and me, you could be an antisocial person and you could do anything you wanted without feeling any guilt, without worrying about any repercussions or ramifications, and it would be literally survival of the fittest, and it would be the strongest survive. And it was very much like that in archaic times, where the kings with the horses and the money and the people went and took whatever they wanted, right? And they considered themselves entitled to it. So, we could live out here, but since we all realize or experience conversations with ourselves about guilt, about shame, about suffering, about hurting others, and we all have these moments of displeasure with ourselves, we move into the second level of mind, and then we ultimately end up realizing that, you know what, I can make a choice, but if I curb it or if I change it a little bit, I can control how it has an impact in the outer world. If I choose this with this twist on it, then I can get what I want and not hurt somebody else. That makes it okay, so I'm okay with that. We start learning how to control events. We start learning how to control relationships. We start learning how to control our temperament. We start learning how to fake. We learn how to facade, put up fake airs, facades, and get along and play nice to cause ourselves less pain. We end up ultimately learning all of these things, and as we bounce back and forth through all these things, we have internal strife that we don't show to others. We end up having confusion. We have conflict. What we do in between these two realms is the world of conflict. Wherever you have two surfaces rubbing together, you have friction, right? So whenever you're in between these two surfaces, you are actually going to experience conflict. We call this the control drama. Everyone in here has gone through a session in life or a segment or are still dealing with areas of your life. You may have overcome the need to control a partner. You may have overcome the need to try to control a child. You may have overcome the need to try and control a customer or a client or a work environment or your weight or anything that you deal with that you have had control dramas with your entire life. You may have come to peace and you may have let it go. But every one of us has something in our life which is an ongoing battle of control. This is the thing you need to look at and put on the circle. You need to understand the issue that you can't control, the issue that you fight so hard for control with, has become your nemesis. It has become your plague, your suffering, your pain, your demise. It is the thing that sometimes powers you to great heights when you feel like you're in control of it, and then sometimes drags you down to the lowest lows because you feel as though you've done what? I've lost control. We all get into these dramas and have this inner bouncing back and forth and this control drama aspect that causes us to experience pain and suffering. People that are out of control are just bouncing at a much quicker, higher frequency. I make a choice, I have a thought, I'm reactionary, I'm not thinking things through, I don't spend as much time on the inner circle, I'm not really thinking it out and then making a contemplated choice. Instead, I'm just shooting from the hip and just trying all these different things, and I'm just randomly doing all these things, not realizing every single choice I make has a consequence. Oh my God, now I've made my situation even worse. How many of you have been there and done that? Everyone. Because we're responding, we're reacting, we're reactionary. And as we do this, we bounce even more because now we're looking at, oh my God, what's the point? And we get fearful. And once fear gets into the consciousness, I don't want to act, I don't want to move. We become immobilized, we stop. It is this control drama and this bouncing back and forth that is the ongoing suffering in the paradigm. That each and every religion, that each and every spiritual master, that each and every higher teaching of consciousness. It's why you come and see me. You come and see a therapist because you need somebody to help you create balance between level 1 and level 2. You're having trouble creating in the outside world, or you're having trouble dealing with what's going on, the response from your choices, or you can't get your mind and your external experiences and your choices all to line up, and you feel in discord, you feel in disharmony. You're out of balance, right? And so in this place and in this way, what we learn about the model is that what we need to do is we need to assess, self-assess. I can't tell you what's right for you, but you can. All I can do is listen to what you're telling me and ask you questions and help you figure out what's out of balance. What do you really want to happen? What are you really seeing in this situation that's causing you stress, anxiety, grief, guilt, remorse, whatever it is? What choices are you making that continuously keeps facilitating such an event? Cyclical patterns, the nature of humanity. I think I shared with you a story last week about the woman who came to me. Well, ironically, we had another session tonight before I came here. And the same one, if you remember me making the tower and showing you the heaviness of the soul and how we get trapped in the circle and we keep making the same choices and keep experiencing the same thing, which causes us more pain and suffering, which causes us to want to bury our head in the sand or drink and behave the same way more, becomes, this is the cycle of addiction. Everybody has known somebody who has been stuck in the cycle of addiction. What we don't understand is we get addicted to our thoughts, to our choices, to our perceptions. You may not even believe the perception or the belief that you have at your core level, and you just don't know it. Why? Because it's how you were taught. You never questioned it. You never stopped and asked, you know what? This may have been my mom's value, or this may have been my dad's value, or this may have been my church's value, but is it mine? Do I agree? Do I believe the same way? Do I feel the same way? Do I have the same perception? Do I want the same thing? And as you start asking those questions, you begin to explore those three elements, and you begin to move more dominantly into the second level, and you get to hang out more in the area of the inner kingdom of mind. Because in essence, if you master the second level, the inner kingdom of mind, you can get pretty good at controlling your environment. Wouldn't most of you agree? I mean, most of you are old enough to have enough experience in life that you know what you can change and what you cannot change. You know what works and what doesn't. You know where you're able to really exercise control and have things go this way, and where you're like, I'm just going to avoid that altogether because that's always a mess. Because you have enough experience to teach you that. So, as we move through this process, what we need to realize is that it is kind of like a spiral graph. As we live enough time on the outer circle and we experience enough of these positive and negative external events and effects, we start realizing that we have some control and some choice, and we start moving into the mind states of trying to figure out, Okay, I get it. There's a relationship, cause and effect relationship. If this, then this. If I do this, then this typically happens. Oh, if I did this and this didn't happen, why? Well, that's because there was an extraneous event. There was an outside circumstance that happened and created this. So we learn and we get better. Ultimately, as we get into mind, what we ultimately start doing is we find that there is still yet another self. The other self that we're referring to and that we're discussing is that one that when we talk about the two voices within us, it is the one, if the dark voice lives out here, right? Level 1 consciousness, it tells you good things when things are going great. Oh man, you're the best. The way you did that, you scored that touchdown, you're the bomb. That's that voice. On the other hand, when things are going negative, that same voice would say, oh man, you're terrible, you're worthless, you're no good, you should be ashamed, and it will tear you down. The mind, or the inner kingdom, the mind is the mediator between the body, which is the outside world, level 1 consciousness, and the spirit, which is the internal essence of our being. Now, so what voice, if we're sitting here on the outside world experiencing this, I'm going to call it the voice of ego, if you would allow me to, because really, what is the ego? The ego is the self that's created by the outside world. If you're, all your life, if you're brought up being harshly criticized, what is your ego strength going to be? It's going to lean on the negative side of the field. It's going to ultimately be low self-esteem, not feeling very proud, not feeling very, all of the positive things that we attribute to ego and ego strength. On the flip side of the coin, if you grow up and you're always told how hot, how good, how smart, how successful, how powerful, how this, how that, and how that, what is your ego then? Now it's over here on this side. Hey, I'm entitled, I'm special, I'm above you guys, I should get to go first, I have different needs, you don't understand, and so whether too high or too low, this would be the ultimate in depression and despair. This would be the ultimate in, I'm going to say narcissism, right? Where the world revolves around me and you're just a squirrel trying to get a nut. That kind of mentality is what we're talking about. This all happens in level 1. This is ego development. It's developed in the outside world. As the mind gets involved and starts thinking and starts seeing and starts trying to fulfill these roles, it becomes the balance, the intercessor. At some point, with your mind spinning around these circles and seeing enough of these two conversations, you become aware of the fact that there are two voices inside of you and that they are diametrically opposed and they do not agree and they do not get along. But there are times when we feel that we're in balance. Not too much, not too little. And we're experiencing not too much, not too little, and we're in balance. When our choices, experiences, and perceptions are bringing us happiness and joy. When we're not in discord, bouncing back and forth out here in level 1 or level 2. There is a place where the mind becomes quiet. When we're living in this, the mind is so occupied with fulfilling and worrying about, it looks only outward. It only sees the outer world. Can you connect with what I'm explaining to you here? It's so busy trying to keep its facade, its illusion in check, like a circus tent. I got a pole up here to keep all this going, my job and all this. I got a pole up here keeping my family together and keeping all this. I got a pole up here keeping my relationship together and my friendships. And so we spend all this time focusing outward on the outer realm, on the outer experiences. And our mind is noisy. What I'm here to explain and what I'm trying to teach is that if you can acquire silence. Somebody asked me last week, how do you get there? How do you do this? Through silence. I don't care if you meditate. I don't care if you're in your garden. I don't care if you take a walk in the forest. I don't care what your motif, what your routine is. We all have a place, a walk on a beach. We all have a thing we do. We all have somewhere that our mind is quiet. Do you know this place for yourself? You know what I'm talking about? A place where you feel peaceful. A place where you get away and you don't worry about the kids, the job, the husbands, boyfriends, girlfriends, blah, 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 blah. All the problems, all the stress, all the grief. That place is the doorway to catching glimpses of what we call the holiest of holies, level 3 consciousness. The third level of consciousness is a place where you are beyond mind. You're beyond worrying about the outside world and about what's happening out there. You understand things that happen out here are circumstance, they're events that are related to cause and effect. No one's out to get me, it's not attacking me, it's not good nor bad, it's just what's so. Therefore, from this internal level of consciousness, you're able to look back and say, I wrecked my car. Must be time to get a new car. As opposed to, oh my God, this is the worst day of my life. I can't believe I wrecked my car. What am I going to do? That would be level 1 consciousness, focusing in the mind, bouncing back and forth on what I'm going to do. How am I going to fix this? I'm teaching you about this because this is accessible to every single one of us. It's taught in tradition. It's taught in meditation. It's taught in spiritual practice. It's taught in things as simple as Jesus' inner kingdom, Buddha's nirvana, enlightenment, peace. It has been taught by different masters. Every religion that you search throughout the history of mankind that has documented these things teaches about a place within human consciousness that is beyond suffering, that is beyond being bothered, that is beyond pain and all of the things that distort our lives when we're living out here in level 1. What I'm actually able to do here in this particular little model is show it to you to the point where, makes sense. All of these teachers were just trying to give us methods to quiet the mind, to stop worrying about what's going on out here so much, and instead allow yourself to go inward. The inner journey, Sufism calls it the inward dweller. This person that lives inside of here is essence, is spirit, is soul, is your higher self, your higher mind. Whatever adjective or whatever source you're listening to, it has its own word for this place. This is the essence of you that we talk about at the very beginning of Genesis that was breathed into man by God to animate the flesh body. The flesh body lives out here in the outside world in response to it. The mind is the little brain processing component that has all these thoughts bouncing around trying to control and protect and survive this outside world. And this inner spirit is the one that's beyond all that's going on out here. If you ever were to meet the Dalai Lama, if you were ever to meet the Buddha, if you ever were to meet Christ, if you ever were to meet Gandhi, you would find somebody who was in touch with this and they lived from it. And so you say, oh, that's not possible. Yes, it is. The only thing that would stop you from doing that is the belief that it's not possible for you. The only thing that would stop you from achieving this place would be you deciding instead to continue living on this outside circle and being constantly pulled outward. Now I tell you, each and every one of you has experienced in your life a time, a moment of bliss, of joy, of happiness, of perfection, where you were so sure it couldn't get any better than this. A time with a loved one, a time by yourself in a garden, a time with friends, a time with family, a special moment, a special occasion, a special place. There was a time in your life when you connected and you said, oh my God, this was perfect. This was the best experience I've ever had. That is a state of mind and a state of consciousness that you do not need an event to cause. You can hold this place. Happiness is a choice, not a condition of circumstance. I have known some of the happiest and most jolly people that were able to laugh off things that normally would crush and disable the average individual. What is the difference between the two? What they make it mean. what they choose to fall into and believe. Do they choose to go out here? Have you ever known anyone that was faithful, of extreme religious faith, is what I would call it? Now, I'm not saying of fanatical religious. I'm talking about faithful. When people come to me, I'll give two different cases. I have two different women right now that I'm working with them and their husband for divorce they're going through and couples counseling. One has just gotten dumped by the man that she loved her whole life because he found somebody else across the world when he was out visiting in another country, and is basically divorcing her out of the blue like this after they had all these plans and had all this life. And the other has been going through this, I'm going to call hell relationship, back and forth, fighting, tumultuous, this, that, and the other with her spouse for years. This one got blindsided. She should be devastated to the point where she can't get up off the floor. This one has known and seen this coming for years, has thought about it herself for years. But now that it's actually happening, devastation is what she's choosing, level 1 consciousness, to focus on. This one, on the other hand, you know what? I know that God's going to get me through this. I know that it's going to be okay. I know that there's a higher purpose. I know that things are going to work out. I can only pray and hope that, he sees his way and that it all works out. She is not being disturbed even a tenth of the quantity that the person in level 1 consciousness is being disturbed. So I give you this analogy as an example. Why would I want to find this inner circle? Why would I want to find this inner peace? Why would I want to find my higher self? Why would I want to connect to my higher consciousness? Because this is where peace lives. Always. It doesn't matter what happens out here if you're able to keep your consciousness focused and centered from here. Does this make sense to you? On the flip side of the coin, the person who tries to be here and gets pulled out here and continuously lives out here has chaos and suffering. This model is exactly what Buddha and Jesus were teaching people thousands of years ago. Suffering lives out here, nirvana lives in here. The inner kingdom lives in here. All they were telling us was that, look, there are levels of consciousness that you are in possession of, that you have power and mastery over. Your job, your mission in life, in this planet, is to find, discover, cultivate this consciousness in yourself. So you say, that's a nice story, but how do you do it? You begin by examining what's got you out here. What is keeping you on the outer level? Your choices? Your past experiences that you're carrying with you, lugging as if ball and chain, because poor me, I was hurt so bad, I was devastated, destroyed, I'll never be the same. What is it that keeps you out here? That is what you need to free yourself from. Jesus called it reducing the chains of bondage, right? Free yourself from bondage. What was he talking about? He was talking about the things that hold you out here in level 1 consciousness. Things that trap your soul. Things that trap your mind in negativity. How do you get to the middle? Every single one of the teachings would tell you the same thing. Love, forgiveness, acceptance. All of the qualities, every single one of the qualities that when I described to you the building, the Tower of Power with the basement and the penthouse up here on the top, we're born in here, and as our life gets heavier and heavier and heavier, we sink and fall, ultimately experiencing some form of prison, the mental prison that people sing and talk and write about, which is trapping us in darkness. Below ground level, trapped in the basement, trapped in darkness. It is here, it is at this point where we feel like we have no control. We feel like we can make no change. It's here where we give up. It's here where we're depressed. It's here where we have no light. As we're able to shed the darkness, our soul begins to rise, and it begins the path of ascension, just like the story of the phoenix, which every one of you have heard. I will fall and burn, and I will rise from the pile of ashes. Each and every one of us is supposed to do that in this life. Each and every one of us is supposed to shed our bondage, our shackles, our depression, our pain, our fear, our suffering, our negativity. Your mission on this planet. How do we heal the planet? Well, we all shed our fear. We all become creatures of love. And the planet begins to change. Why? Because we're elevating our own consciousness. We're raising our consciousness to another level, thereby doing different things on the planet, making different choices, being different, choosing different, because our perception is now different. And what is the outcome? Change. Now all of a sudden we're nicer, we're friendlier, we're reaching out, we're helping others. If you think our government's going to save us, you are sadly mistaken. It's us or bust. And that's where we are. This is what we were taught in the book of Revelation. This is what we were taught by Nostradamus. Pick any prophet. Edgar Cayce even went down this path. All of these prophets told us about the stuff to come. If you're one who had ever read the Bible Code. Anybody ever read the book, the Bible Code? Michael Dresden. Pretty good read, pretty interesting. Basically what he says is that in this book, you're able to find, in this matrices, you're able to find every event that's ever occurred in human history, and it's in this computer code logarithm from the first 5 books of the Bible. And they have put it into the computer line by line like a word search, and they're able to put in parameters and find crossing words such as Kennedy, assassinated, Texas, 19 and the year, right? And you can put anything in, and this works for everything. That's how crazy this Bible code thing is. Long story short, why am I telling you this? Because in that same code, it talks about Armageddon, and it talks about the end of time. And crossed on every single one of those lines are the words, will you change it? I was blown away. I'm like, it's up to us. It's up to it's up to us to decide. We want change. We want a different place. We want to be personally in a different place. And if every one of us elevates our own personal consciousness and rises ourselves to the upper echelon, what's going to happen to the rest of the world? If every human makes this their only goal, instead of how much money can I get, how much peace can I acquire? How much love can I possess and give to others? If this is our mission, each and every one of us individually, if we took on this the same way we take on things of our outside level 1 ego, what do we do out here in level 1 consciousness? Well, we want to be rich. We want to be good looking. We want to be smart. We want to be liked. We want to be powerful. We want to be seen in a certain light. All of the things that drive our ego are the things that currently rule our society. Do you understand and do you agree with what I'm explaining to you? Because our society does not benefit by advancing. Why? What's in control of our society? Money. Power. Is it of any benefit to get people to stop buying in and to stop the material game and to stop playing in that world? No. That would shut down the wheel like this. So, it's up to us. It's up to each one of us. I don't care which way you come at this. If you're a do-gooder who just wants to help the world, heal yourself. Let go of your baggage. Develop acceptance. Work to love yourself. Work to love others. And when I say love yourself and love others, I don't mean in an obsessive, compulsive, narcissistic way. I mean in a balanced way where, I love you just as much as I love me, but I also love me just as much as I love you. So I'm not going to put up or I'm not going to do things that are detrimental to me in order to, because what happens then? Codependent relationships, I get taken advantage of, I get abused, likely. And that's human nature. We can't help it. It's not even conscious. If you start doing everything for me, what am I going to start doing? Letting you do everything. And if you start doing everything, what's really happening to me? The number one thing that we say in the mental health arena: if you enable, you disable. People have to learn how to do for themselves. People have to stand on their own 2 feet. People have to cross these 3 levels of consciousness on their own. I can't make you go here. I can't take you there. I can only teach you how to get there. You have to want to go here.
Actually, this is where I am standing right now, trying to get to this point, because my husband retired, and when I express this sentiment or whatever, this thought, that I also exist and I matter, not you. Your will and your whims are not going to be honored every minute of the day. And it goes in a way is busy that where is she coming from? Where is she coming from?
In your case, what nationality are you?
Indian.
In your case, you are a victim of his perception. Because in your culture, do you mind if I speak of this? In your culture, that is the way it is. The man's way. It is the man's world. It is the man's thoughts.
It was a few generations ago.
Right.
My generation. Yeah.
But this mental perception ran through the male generations of his bloodline, his grandfathers and fathers, and to him. And consciously or not, he has that perception.
He's stuck deep in it.
Absolutely. So, you're sitting here because he's stuck at level 1 at this perception here. You have already decided that, you know what, I need to get into here, and therefore I can't allow this to continue happening. So you're stuck in this push me, pull you kind of mentality where you're in between, stuck in the level of mind, and it's causing you angst, and it's causing you, and to you, there's no way out. It's a no-win scenario. My husband has one anchor on the outside world, level 1 consciousness. I want to be in level 3 consciousness, and it doesn't seem that there's any way he's going to come join me over here. The older somebody is, the more likely they are not to change, because they are so set in their ways. Now, barring the process of life, naturally, the reason we age is because every year we live on this earth. Every year we cross over some of those zones of 30, of 40, of 50, of 60, of 70 to 80. Our body starts deteriorating. Our mind starts deteriorating. Guess what that does to us? Kind of like losing one of your senses. It increases your spirit. How many of you have ever met some old person that was all sweet and all, oh, it's okay, it's all good, laid back in this manner? I have 2 grandparents, both of which I hear stories about. I'm like, get out of here. That was not my grandfather. My grandfather was this sweet old man that let me play on his tractor and taught me how to shoot pool and would sit me on his lap when I was 8 and let me drive his car. I mean, my grandfather was the greatest guy on the planet. I hear stories about how he would come home from work and start taking off his belt. Which one needs it? And he'd start passing out whippings to my dad and all of his brothers. Or how he'd be sitting there at dinner time and he'd backhand somebody out of the chair because he thought they were sassing or back-talking. This is the man he was, and by the time I knew him, I'm like, I can't even fathom the guy you're talking about. What mellowed him? What changed him? What softened? He had enough experience in life that he got off that outside circle and stopped worrying about all this. Stopped worrying about material possessions and money and power and control. Stopped worrying about all the problems with the kids and trying to control every event, because he realized, I've been through 5 kids. I couldn't control the first one, and I can't control the last one. Therefore, I'm not going to control any of them. I'll give them guidance. They can do what they need to do. Brought him peace. The older we get, the more experience we have. The more experience we have, the more wisdom we obtain. Do you get the perfect corollary? You do not have to wait until your deathbed, until you are 80 years old, to obtain wisdom. What you have to do is you have to actively and proactively be a part of your own spiritual progression. You have to make it your work. You have to go places within your consciousness that you shut the doors to years ago and said, okay, skeleton number 1, I'm locking that one and throwing that away. You will never come out again. But what you don't understand is whatever you consider to be a skeleton, whatever you lock away in your mental closet, whatever you have decided not to deal with and address and free from your life, whether that be in the form of hate, whether that be guilt, whether that be grief, whether it's something you did or something done to you, or whether it's something that another did, or whether it's a way you feel you were treated, whether it's a way you feel you were mistreated, it doesn't matter what it is. Anything that you have not dealt with is one of the compartments of darkness and blackness that fills your ball. And if you have enough experience in life that is negative, and if you happen to be, unfortunately, in possession of an imbalanced body, mind, and spirit, and you happen to also be making choices and have misaligned perceptions and be making poor choices that are not balanced, you have caused yourself more hardship than you could probably even count on both of your hands, and you have filled this little ball of soul with darkness and blackness and a multitude of closets which are weighing your soul down to this very day. Now, you may have eradicated some of these because you are mostly old enough that you have learned how to deal. You have learned how to cope. You have learned how to let go. You have learned how to forgive. And so you have rised up. I don't imagine too many of you are at this point right now. If so, you would be calling me on the phone and seeing me on private. So most of you have found a way to elevate your own consciousness by clearing out some of your stuff. What I'm explaining to you is the only reason that you're still here operating in this level 2 is because you need to continue working. Is because there is still stuff inside of you. You tell yourself, well, that doesn't really bother me anymore. I got over that when I was a kid. Really? Come sit with me and talk to me about it. And as soon as you start telling me the story, you start tearing up and you haven't gotten over and let go of anything. You're only trying to convince yourself that you have. If you still have emotional attachment, you are still bonded to that event. If you still have upset, anger, hurt, frustration, irritation, any negative emotion whatsoever, right? If this is my emotional circle, every single part of you that falls onto the side of negative, you know what a negative emotion is. Anything that doesn't make you happy is negative. Anything that causes you pain, anything that causes you suffering, anything that causes you concern is negative. What we want is we want to fill the void. We want as much positivity. Ironically, you notice how the plus sign or the positivity is also a cross. What's the whole conversation of the whole Christian background? And I'm not trying to preach a religion, I'm just making an analogy. The whole conversation is that we're supposed to forgive and let go of all of our own sins because somebody else took those away for us. The whole conversation is that we're supposed to release. Why release? Because of this. As you release your pain, your suffering, your heartache, your hurt, your emotional discord, your chains, your bondage, the rocks, as you open these doors and let the skeletons out of the closets that you've compartmentalized them in your mind so many years ago because you've been playing on this level, on the second level for 20 years, and you are so good at mind control that you're able to tell yourself something and make yourself believe it. Are you with me? What I'm here to tell you is that this is the lie that we tell ourselves, every single one of us. The Bible would tell you that Satan is a liar. Beware of the snares of the devil. Why? Because the ego is akin to what I'm telling you would be associated with the devil. The devil made me do it. Really? I bet it was your ego. Right? We wanted something. On the flip side of the coin, what are we really talking about in the level of mind. You get so much experience and you've gotten so good at hiding, at faking it. What do they say? Fake it till you make it. What do? Oh, that's okay. It doesn't bother me. But really you're scathing on the inside? No, I dealt with that many years ago. Really? But that's why you're still hurt, and every time it comes up, you secretly feel on the inside. You're just not allowed to show it because everybody asks you what's wrong. So you hide it. You pretend. This is the prison of the mind. This is what you need to understand. Why should I go back and deal with my pain with my sister that I had when I was 8? Why should I go back and reconcile with my mother? She was blah, blah, blah. Even if your person is dead, you still need to reconcile. How do I do such a thing? Write them a letter. Read it out loud as if they're sitting in front of you. Burn it. I love you and forgive you. And let that be the end of your story of drama. Now, I don't mean to hurt anybody's feelings and I don't mean to belittle anything, but I need to make a point. I need to drive it home. When I talk about your story, every one of us has a story that lives in the realm of our perception. Every perception we have is our story. Mommy wronged me. Daddy wronged me. This happened to me. This happened to me. I was never loved. I was never cared for. I was abused. It wasn't fair. On and on and on and on and on. Doesn't matter what we're talking about. Doesn't matter what happened. It formed and created a story. Right? This story is the one you went on to tell and recount the pain and suffering to your friends, to your spouse, to significant others in your life. And as you told them, oh, you wouldn't believe what she did to me when I was a kid, blah, 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 and you're recounting your story. Your story, your story, your story. Guess what happens if you carry that story with you through your consciousness throughout this entire realm of your life? You carry that weight, that burden, that pain, that suffering, and it sits here and becomes one of these things that weighs you down and keeps you from elevating to the next level of consciousness. You're hurting yourself even if you were wronged, even if you were the victim. This is why I try to explain to people all the time, and they have such a hard concept. Forgive them. I'm not forgiving them. They did this to me. They should come and say they're sorry. Okay, but maybe they're not going to. So what is the point of forgiveness? Forgiveness isn't for them. I'm not doing them a favor by letting them off the hook. I'm forgiving them for their trespasses because it frees me from the bondage and the burden and the weight of this carrying it around in my soul. From carrying around the heaviness and the angst of the anger, of the hatred, of the sorrow.
Can you reinvent your story?
Absolutely. That's what we do in therapy. We change stories. I take a story that you come in and sit down with me, and I understand the pain and suffering of where you are, and I begin to offer you alternative possibilities of where that might be coming from or how that might happen. And ultimately, what we do is we change your story. Here is a known fact, and this will prove exactly what I'm talking to you about. Alfred Adler, he was this humanist, and he was doing therapy. He did a study, and what he found was, unconditionally, as he did therapy and healed patients from their grief and stress and strife, their early memories changed. The story of, Dad used to beat the hell out of me, and changed to, my dad wasn't the greatest guy, or me and my dad, their story changed from therapy. And that's exactly what I'm trying to explain to you, and that's what I'm telling you about our perception and about how it guides our choices and our experiences and how we feel and how it weights down our soul and how it holds us from reaching the upper echelon and the highest pinnacles that we can attain. Yes, ma'am.
Question for you. Sometimes it happens to me regarding perception that whenever I go and have an experience and then I come home, sometimes you kind of need of letting go or expressing like the parts you didn't like
Absolutely. And this is what I'm encouraging you all to do. I'm encouraging you to become, what did the Bible say? Physician, heal thyself. You're all physicians. You all know you better than anyone on this planet. You don't need a therapist. You don't need a psychologist or somebody to sit there and get in your stuff to tell you what's right for you. If you go inside yourself and if you look at what's going on, you know where your pitfalls are. You know where your prisons are. You know where your pain is. You know where your suffering is. You know if you tend to have a negative perception of things and if you tend to see the bad or the wrong in things. You know if that needs to be altered or would be beneficial for you to change. And so you need to start working on those areas. What you're talking about is exactly correct. Human perception works like this. An event happens. Doesn't matter what it is. I look at it. I choose what I focus on. Do I focus on, oh my God, that person is so mean, I can't believe they did that. Then I'm going to have disdain for the person and I'm going to feel negatively about the event. Now, what I chose to look at is probably a function of my conditioning from my youth that made a perception, and that's why I chose to focus on that one small little piece of a situation. I could just as easily, look what that guy's trying to do. That's very nice of him, because I can see the positive of the event. My point being to you is that the reason that police have such a hard time. They go to a crime scene and what happens? I have now 20 witnesses. 20 witnesses give 20 different accounts of what happened because each one of them is looking at it through their own little blinders and their own little perception that they focused on. Well, I was looking at the way he was running. I was looking at the way he was yelling. I was looking at the way he was emotionally acting. I was looking at the facial expression he was giving. I was looking at we all look at something different based on what we have learned or what we feel is important, and so we see different components. So exactly what you just said, and to your point, if you're able to take an event in and be more aware and fully encompass it, you don't have to be upset or bothered by the negative aspects. Instead, that is your sign, your cue, your tell of what? What do you think I'm going to tell you right now? See how connected we are. To flip it, to look at it. Oh, all this is all great. Why is that bad? What's going on inside of me that is so overly focused on this negative event? I guarantee you that is a symbol of something that is locked into your own subconscious or unconscious mind that you have yet to heal, because that it wants to be healed. This is the part I need you to get. Every one of our unconscious pains wants to be healed. The light, the emptiness, the penthouse wants us all to live in it. As you are become aware, why does that cause me pain? Why does that cause me such grief? And you start exploring it, you will find that there is an underlying feeling, let's say jealousy, that is then, if you research it in your own history and your own past, is connected, oh my God, this goes all the way back to the time when my brother got this and I got this and I was jealous and mad and hurt and thought mom and dad loved him more. You will find a connection to something in your past that has been a skeleton, a negative perception creating event that has flowed throughout your life. I'm not good enough. I wasn't special. He was always the favorite. Whatever story you want to put in there. You understand where I'm going with this? Mm-hmm.
One more aspect. Whoever is doing whatever deed that you don't like, sometimes don't you think, I would think that what kind of day that person is having, or what is going through his mind when he's acting in a certain way. He may not be that way all the time.
Absolutely.
There's something that is triggered.
And so, kind of what you say, in psychology, we're very straightforward about this. Every single choice is driven by a motive, a motivation. This is why cops, what's the first thing they look for in a crime? What's their motive? Because if they didn't have something to gain, they're probably not our person. Because the average person wouldn't do something like this without motive. Individuals every day come home in bad moods. It's the age-old story. Did you have a bad day, honey? Came home, yelled at the kids, and beat the dog. Bad day at work? It's those kinds of things where we carry around or we let out emotion that we're bridling from one place in another area. It's the oldest story in the book. I yell at my wife because I can't yell at my boss. She'll forgive me, he'll fire me. So I have to come home and yell at you because I'm angry and I need to let it out.
She let it out on the kids because she's upset.
Right. And it just keeps passing on. Why do you think everybody's driving around with road rage the way we are? I mean, really, come on. Traffic sucks so bad. Is it really going to kill you if you let somebody in front of you? I laugh every morning on my way to work when I pull up on Rayford Sawdust and I'm sitting there in that lane and I see somebody in my mirror behind me as that one lane funnels in because the on-ramp comes on, and I see somebody every single day pull over and straddle that line. Don't you pass me! And I laugh as I'm sitting there and I'm like, you're the one breaking the law right now. Their lane is open. You chose not to go around and go up there, but you're so mad at, or so not wanting them to get ahead of you in this lane, that you are breaking the law by driving down the middle of the road and obstructing or blocking. They have every right to be mad at you, and yet here you are getting mad at them because you think they're cheating you. That's a prime example of level 1 consciousness. It's all about me. You know what? If you wanted to go around and drive up there, you could. Well, but I don't want to because then I'll have to merge in and somebody won't let me in. Okay, well then don't get mad at him because he wants to take that chance. Maybe he's a nice guy and he'll wave to people and say, can I get in? And they'll let him in and it works for him. Whose fault is that? Yours. But that's what I'm talking about when we talk about level 1, level 2, and level 3 consciousness. I sit in my car watching the whole thing happen, just laughing my ass off, thinking this is entertainment. Because I know what they're thinking and I know what's going on. This is what I'm talking to you about awareness and about why once you enter into this realm and you become aware and you start being able to focus on your thoughts and then seeing the events as they're happening out here, you see it all as one big joke. We take the world and we take life and we take all these bad things so seriously, but really, let me tell you the truth. None of it matters. When you die, you're not going anywhere with anything except for what you came into this world with, which is nothing but your soul and your spirit. You're not taking your money, you're not taking your car, you're not taking your clothes, you're not taking your house, you're not even taking photos. So what do you have that's worthwhile to do on this earth? Find and cultivate this inner spirit, this inner soul. Make yourself become a being of love, and then you will have something worthwhile to take with you when you exit this world. And if any of the Eastern traditions are right, if you successfully navigate this life and get to this inner self and find peace and become love, you don't have to come back and do it all over again and start in a whole different level, in a whole different reincarnation. Wouldn't that be a treat? You mean I get to go live in heaven with God and the angels or move on to the next level of existence? Awesome. Or, I'm sorry, you failed life. You're going to have to go back and do it all over again. Only this time, you're going to have some problem that you did not have this time, and you're going to hate that problem even worse than the problem you have this time. You get how it works? Life is going to make you get here. I don't care if it takes 1 life, 10 life, 100 lives, 1,000 lives. It doesn't matter. Time only exists to you here on this earth as we watch our watch and track it. In the real world, billions of years, we don't even know how much time has passed. They speculate, they guess, billions, millions, trillions, quadrillions, hundreds of millions of billions. For all we know, the universe has been going like this, up and down, up and down, up and down. Big bang, no big bang. Big bang, expansion. Big bang, forever. It may be an ongoing, ever, infinite. But the bottom line is that you have the ability to reach this inner kingdom. You have the ability to establish this nirvana, to contact the higher self, to reach this domain right here, right now, and the only one in your way or stopping you from doing this is you. You can't blame your mom, you can't blame your dad, you can't blame your spouse, you can't blame anybody else. You are the only one that is stopping you from reaching this place. And if you are working on yourself and you're open to instruction, the universe is designed to be a mirror. What do I mean by that? I mean its purpose is to give you exactly what you need to experience in order for you to let go, learn a lesson, and move to the next level of consciousness on the ladder. It wants you to be here. You choose to be here, you just don't know it. You focused on the darkness. You're the one that fell into the depression. You're the one that chose to see everything wrong in your life. I deal with somebody who's, let's say, suicidal. When they're at that moment and they're at that point, all they can think, all they can see is the negative in their life that is so bad, so wrong, so worthless, so painful, so hurtful, that life isn't worth living anymore. I want it to be done. Now, at this stage of consciousness right now, we all know differently. Brother, that is because you're focused on everything that's bad in your life right now. Your mind, your perception is tunnel vision on bad. Because you still have your favorite TV show to watch. You still have your favorite sport to play. You still have your brother, your sister, and your best friends waiting for you to come out and have a good time with them. You still have opportunities to go to school, to get a job, to do this and to do this, all the things that you planned on doing. The only difference is now you can't see them because you're in the tunnel of darkness. That's the difference. Consciousness, the mind, where we are, where we go. With all of this, that's this place right here that I'm talking to you about. We don't feel like we have any way out. We don't feel like it's going to change. We don't feel like we're ever going to rise. With each and every one of you, as you go through and you look inside, get a pencil and get a paper. Do not use a computer. Why? Because that's a process. Paper, automatic writing is what the ancients used to teach and what they used to do. You get a pencil and a piece of paper and you begin to write your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions. And as you train and track on this thought and you just write, even if you're writing babble to begin with, your mind will begin to give way or focus and harness and get quiet as you focus and harness, and your soul will begin to talk through your pen, which is why they called it automatic writing. They would write things. The Desert Fathers are a group of individuals who wrote all these spiritual passages. You should read some of their stuff. It's all about the stuff that I've been teaching you about life and about understanding and about acceptance and about forgiveness and about focusing inward and about releasing all of your demons and all of these negative energies and all of this stuff. It's all saying the same thing. And so therefore the teaching has to be true. This just gives you an easy model to understand it and to begin to apply it to your own life and to yourself. As you work to find out and smoke out those things inside of you that are causing you pain, suffering, grief, heartache, find out why, eradicate them, forgive them, release them, make a phone call. If you can't make the phone call, write a letter. If you can't write the letter, say a prayer. If you can't do any of those things, do whatever it is you feel would rectify, had it been done to you, do it for another. Give and you will receive. It's not by accident that he said that. If you give what's bothering you, if you give the assistance, the aid, the help that another never got, you'll feel so good about that situation that it will rectify and cancel out the darkness that's inside of you. Am I making sense? And as you do this and as you get rid of these things, you will find that you will raise in consciousness. And to be honest with you, I don't know how far the high goes. At several points in my own life, I've thought, oh, I'm there now, I get it, I see, nothing bothers me, only to find out that, oh, I was so short-sighted, now I get it. Oh, I was so short-sighted, now I get it. What did that teach me? It's a process that is a never-ending story. You can't ever stop trying to grow because that's your job, that's your mission, that's your journey. Until the day you walk on water and until the day you are at peace and the world is with you and we're living heaven on earth, this is your mission, this is your job. And you have to do it yourself by your own choice within you. Nobody else can motivate you to take on such a task, because why would you? Who wants to open up their skeleton and get it out and play with it? Come on out, scare me, trick or treat, I get it. Jump around, make me sad, make me nervous, make me cry, whatever. Dance all over my emotions, pull my heartstrings, do all that stuff you always do. Go ahead, have fun. Nobody wants to subject themselves to that. Unless you have the confidence, which I'm trying to instill in you, that that will make it go away. That's what therapy is, right? You come in and you talk about what's bothering you to the point where you work through it. And what happens when you work through it? You're at peace. You're adjusted. You've let something go. You're not carrying it around. Your soul, your spirit's not heavy anymore. So, with all of that said, do you have any questions of me? Does anybody have any thoughts about this whole conversation and topic?
Came up with that book.
Say that again. The Bible Code? Michael Dresden wrote it. I'm sorry, was that your question? I didn't hear it.
I have some.
Okay.
Reading your book, I reached till you decided to go to Colorado. All the ups and downs. And I was wondering, what kind of books? What inspired you to go through all the things you've been through and to get to the heights of love? It is amazing. When I finish the book, that's when I'll get some answers that I've got since I'm here.
Well, that's a very curious question, and I would love to discuss that and talk with you about it more, but I'm not going to make this the me show. But I will tell you that my own life was very, I'm going to say, up and down and treacherous, and I searched my own soul for all these answers and for all these questions and for all these things, and ultimately, what that led me to was questions about life, about meaning, and about purpose. And when I had reached all of my own self-proclaimed goals, by 35, I was a self-made millionaire living in a mansion in Colorado, running a wireless company, and thought I had everything. And I was the least happy I'd ever been in my entire life. And then by 36, I was divorced, and everything that I had worked for was gone. And I started searching and soul searching and looking for answers. And I used to be a martial artist, and I used to get in the sauna to meditate and heal myself when I was sick or wasn't feeling well. And on one particular night, I had an out-of-body experience, or as I say, I talked to God. And in that particular occasion, in that moment, I was shown everything that I'm teaching you. And when I got done with this conversation, I let go of things that I had carried with me and held for years, 35, 36 years. I hated my father. I let it all go. All these other things, all my aspirations to be rich, to be powerful, to be money, I let it all go. I saw that all of my perceptions were misguided and erroneous, and all of a sudden I had this, oh my God, I've dedicated my life to all this stuff, and it's nothing but an illusion and a fairy tale. What now? And so I started the inner quest. And I started studying religions, and I started studying ancient philosophies, and I started studying all of it. And I started digesting it, and I started trying to figure it out. And through experience and through life and through all of that, I have come up with this. I'm just saving you. It took me 15 years to accumulate the knowledge and the wisdom to be able to explain this to you the way that I do. In a simplistic 2-hour class, I can teach you all of this. In an 8-hour class, I can give you tools to use it yourself. Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about when I keep coming back. It's mostly Hindu philosophy of life, your actions, till you start discarding everything and reach to that point.
That's what it's all about.
The circle of life goes on till you reach nirvana. Otherwise, your actions determine the next birth cycle, what kind of life you want to have. That's the belief in that.
I agree. And that's why I teach this, and that's why we're here. And apparently you guys all want to know this and want to be taught this, and that's why you're here. And I don't know how to make this go away, so I'm just going to go with it. So what I did was I just wanted to kind of get back on some of the slides, because what I was doing last week is I was using these Kabbalistic teachings. If you don't know what Kabbalah is, it's basically the Jewish mystical tradition. And it's one of the oldest forms of religion known. So the bottom line is that I took all of these things. I get these emails from the Kabbalah Center. Every week or every day they send out these thoughts, these messages, these sayings. And what I did was all these things that I gave you last week, and what I'm picking up on again now here, are all these messages. And I was just laughing at myself as I'm reading them. I'm like, see, they have to know what they're talking about, because every one of these things fits in my model. And then I thought, hey, that's a good way to show unity, unison between the different ideas and the different thoughts and the principles. I don't care if we're talking about religion or psychology or spirituality or Jesus or Buddha or Muhammad or... The point is, this is what this is all about. However you learn it best is what you should study. The bottom line is it's about you. It's about your mind. It's about your body. It's about your spirit. It's about your soul's ability to step into the forefront. We keep our soul locked in a cage while our mind and body go off living life thinking that we're who we are. Not until much later in life, until you have an awakening, which is why they call it that, do you realize that, oh my God, I'm not who I thought I was at all. I'm not my body or my mind. I'm actually my soul. And my soul is actually this thing that's connected to this greater piece of the whole. Wow. Did I have everything mistaken, thinking I was an individual that was out here living my life and doing all of this? Really, I'm part of a greater whole. I like Deepak Chopra saying, we're all fingers on the hand. You know what? We think we're all individual. This finger thinks it's different from this finger, that thinks it's different from this finger, and really even over here on these fingers. But in reality, each one of these fingers is connected to the hand is connected to the arm, which is connected to the body, which is connected to all the other parts. And in reality, they're all one. They just don't know it. That's what I think about people. I think we're all one and we just don't know it. I think consciousness, when we all reach this level, I think you will understand the concept, whatever you do to another, you actually do to yourself. I think when you reach this level, you will understand, as you give, you receive, and that the universe is a mirror that reflects everything back at you. You will understand the concept of karma. You will understand every concept ever taught when you're able to look at it from a place other than the outer first or second layers of consciousness. How do you get in here? We've talked about it. Acceptance, forgiveness, eradicating the darkness in your heart, in your soul, the things that make you heavy, the things that keep you down here and allow you to lift up. So with that, the greatest poets and philosophers of the world have attempted to define and describe love. To Kabbalists, it has always been a very simple form of consciousness, which is the desire to share. Try to imagine explaining love. Define love to me. Try and tell a kid what love is. Well, let's see. You can go through all the physical traits. You can go through all the mental traits. You can go through all the emotional traits. But if you really want to get phonetically technical about the whole concept of defining love, you have to understand that it is and resides on the form of a circle, and that in reality, love comes in all different degrees from negative to positive. At the most negative form, love is hate. How can love and hate be the same? I hate you, so therefore I love you. Because if you didn't love that person, how could you possibly hate them? Because otherwise you just wouldn't care. Right? If you just made me so mad, or if I felt this way, I'd be like, I'm out, man. I'm done with you. That's not love. That's not caring. Love is the opposite of hate. On the same circle, they are each other's components. Because if you don't have the ability to hate me, you don't have the ability to love me. So, their definition, the desire to share. I think that's very simple and that's very nice. Love is a state of mind. When you're in it, You can't help but to give it. The truth is always pleasant. It's not always pleasant. It doesn't always come wrapped in a beautiful package or coated with sugar, so it's easier for us to swallow. The truth is hard to hear sometimes, but it's usually what we need in order to become a better version of ourselves. Now, I did not go home and study this and premeditate what I was just teaching you on this, but that is exactly what I just got done explaining to you about this. You may not want to let the truth out about your skeletons in your dark closet, but you need to do so if you want to unsheath the better version of yourself. Hearing the truth, you don't need to be offended if somebody gives you their version of truth. What you need to do is you need to be introspective and say, thank you. Am I really arrogant? Am I really this? Am I really this? Well, let's see. I can see where they might say that. I guess sometimes I am. That's self-reflection. I don't have to criticize myself. I don't have to beat myself up. But I do need to take the information I get and I need to listen and check. And so the thing we always taught the girls in camp, if it sticks, make it fit. If it doesn't, let it fly.
See, in this country, I find people are very reluctant to tell you the truth, even the close friends. I have a friend from Middle Eastern countries, from India, and it's like, you shouldn't have done this. Very good friends, and I'm looking at that and thank you. Because we need to hear those things, and we don't get to hear very often. And then others, I put that painting out, and I want honest criticism. Where did I even from? No, it's nice. I don't want that. I want the honest opinion. Where did I
Sure.
do the form or the color? Fit in the way. You don't get that.
Absolutely. And when we get down to it, really what the bottom line is that all of these things are determined by intent. Whatever your intent is, I may harm you, and I can not intend to in any way, shape, or form. The whole answer to the question is, oh my God, my realization, I realized later what I said, how it might have been taken wrong. I'm so sorry if what I said offended you, because that was definitely not my intent. That's an awareness and an act on my part that was probably going to make her not be mad at me the next time she sees me, because I owned it. What is our normal way when we're in level 1 consciousness? Instead of telling the truth, well, she just took it wrong. It's all her. That would be our normal way, right, at level 1? But the truth, hard to hear, hard to say sometimes. One of the biggest things that our ego won't let us do when we're down here at level 1 consciousness, we're on that outside circle, we have trouble owning our errors, our mistakes. Oh my God, my bad. I'm so sorry. What do we do instead? We get the mind involved and we start making up excuses. We start making up reasons. This is why they call them ego defense mechanisms. The ego has to defend itself. Oh my God, I can't take credit for the wrongdoing here. Therefore, it's got to be his fault or her fault. I'm projecting it out onto others. You're so rude, when really I'm the one being rude. All of these things are ego defense mechanisms that we all use to protect the ego's delicate nature. And the truth is what sets you free from ego, as well as from your own mental bondage, prisons, and the things that hold us down. So, we all experience personal conflicts from time to time. One of the most proactive ways to handle arguments or disagreements is to take a breath and ask yourself, what is the situation trying to teach me? Is that not also exactly what I just got done telling you a few minutes ago? Whenever you find something negative or whenever something makes you disturbed on the inside, it is an indication, a signal, a sign for you to say, whoa, I'm having a negative emotion about this particular event. Why? What is it in me that's feeling this? What is it in me that's being hurt, that's being whatever it is? And then begin to ask yourself, and you will find it's connected to something else from your past in your life. Conflicts occur for one reason and one reason only, because there is a lesson for us to learn. In this universe, and this is something that I ask you to take with you wherever you go, there are no accidents and there are no coincidences. Everything happens for a reason. The universe is perfectly designed. Where you see chaos and conflict, you see people that are unsettled on the inside and are going through this mess right here. People in chaos and conflict or at war with each other are in the heart of this mess. It's a mirror. It's showing you, chill out, calm down. Look at the madness. Look at the chaos. Look what you're creating. It's not by accident that our world is the way it is, and we keep reading about all the crazy things we keep reading about, because people are in this transition zone right now. If you are any kind of biblical person at all, or if you're any kind of scholar of spiritual studies, you know that we have to go through the Great Tribulation in order to get to the kingdom, or earth, heaven on earth, or Zion, pick your biblical term for it. And that's because of the conflict, and that's what we're going through, and that's what many of us are going through. Why do you think that the weather is the way it is, crazier than it's ever been? Because the people are more emotionally distraught and disturbed right now than any other time, because they're doing this. And everything is connected to everything else, like fingers on the hand. And so it all is interconnected, and it all interacts together. So, with this, look at what's inside of you and what's in your mind, purifying and clearing your own heart, and you will see peace begin to manifest around you. So with this one, everyone wants world peace, but not everyone is willing to do what it takes to make it happen. Ending global conflicts begin with ending individual ones. It's almost as if this was just popped up and on cue, and I swear to you as I'm standing here in front of you, I just picked up from where we left off last time and hadn't touched or read this, and everything that we're talking about is exactly what I've just been showing and demonstrating to you. This is my example of how everything is interconnected and all is one, right? And that these words are truth. You need to work on you. You need to resolve your own internal conflicts, because that's how we make lasting change. So, opening the door to peace depends on us. Tolerance, humanity, and dignity are the keys. When we talk about working on our negativity, calling it ours isn't altogether true. In reality, the only eternal truth is that of our soul, which is already perfect as it is. Understanding that, what I'm explaining to you, the soul lies inside of you already perfect as it is. Your job is to weed through the outer ego self, through the mind that has been trained your whole life and conditioned by ego, to allow yourself to awaken your consciousness to the spiritual soul self that lives within you. Once you do that, your soul, your spirit, will begin to reprogram your mind, and your mind will begin to see all the things in the outside world, just like our conversation earlier about changing your story, right? Mm-hmm. Once you are letting your spirit drive your bus and you are letting it purify your mind, you will then see that you will see the outside world differently. You will have a different story about how your partner wronged you. You will have a different story about how this was done to you and this was done to you and you're owed this and poor you and this, that, and the other. And you will understand the truth, which is you caused all of it and you just don't know it. That's the truth. You caused it so you could have the lesson, the experience, so you could actually learn to let go. You would learn to change your mind. You would learn to come into balance in an area where you are imbalanced. That is what I mean by there are no accidents and there are no coincidences and that everything happens for a reason. You just have to find the purpose and the reason and allow yourself to go with it. So removing our negativity, chipping away those hard coverings that keep us from seeing the truth and our inner perfection, taking note of how much we give or take energy can provide a gauge of where we are spiritually. Givers are more spiritually advanced than takers. If you're going to measure yourself on this, to give is to receive, right? So therefore, The spiritually advanced know this, and so what do? Give energy, give love, give light. Why? Because I get it all back on the backside, it feels good, right? That's how we roll. And so all of these examples of taking energy, including watching TV, gossiping, overindulging, complaining, basically, let me break this down. Anything negative, anything that is a waste of your time, energy, and efforts. Examples of giving energy include things like volunteering, creative outlets, positive new projects, sharing support with a friend, love, basically. So, isn't it weird that the things that take energy from us are actually the things that make us feel drained? Yet, whereas the ways in which we give energy make us more energized, when you're helping somebody else, if you're working on a project, you are the Energizer Bunny. If you go home and do nothing and lay down on the couch and be sluggo, you are tired and lazy and don't want to get off the couch. And all of this is because in order to get energy, you need to give it. So, all of this, the only way to get more energy is to give it. From criticism to compliments, we can't take what other people think or do personally. This is 101 on the ladder of suffering. You know, you all have opinions. I could tell you all my stories and all this, and you'd all have different opinions, and you'd all form different judgments, and you'd all this and that and the other. The bottom line is that if I learned the lesson I needed to learn from whatever I did or said or went through, then it was for a purpose, and it had reason, and it was valid, and it needed to happen. You don't get to judge that. No more than I get to judge what you've done, what you've said, where you've been, what you've been through, because whatever you've done, said, and been through is part of your process, and I don't get to judge that, because if it makes you a better person in the end, then yay for you. That's exactly what you should have, would have, and could have done, and there are no accidents and there are no coincidences. Judgment lives out here in level 1 consciousness. It lives a little bit in here in level 2 consciousness as we start thinking the thoughts, maybe just not acting on them. It does not exist in level 3 consciousness, because in level 3 consciousness you understand that that's ridiculous and that's only your own errant self needing to point the finger, of which I'm pointing 3 back at myself. So with this said, it takes practice, but what we have to do is we become immune to the approval and actions of others. Many people operate and live their whole life trying to get praise, trying to get approval from other people. That is the same individual that is always let down and always hurt. Well, I just did everything for you and you just don't appreciate me, or didn't say what I wanted you to say, or didn't do what I needed you to do, or you didn't do it back for me. If you're doing something to get something in return, then you're doing it for the wrong reasons. And that's the whole message behind all this. And to approve or disprove is all part of the ego strategies to justify and to quantify where you are according to others. The only thing you should be justifying and quantifying is where are you on the journey to your highest self. This is the only thing that means anything in the realm of things. So, your body has limitations, but your soul is limitless. The body's desire is to receive, while the soul's desire, our true desire, is to share. Letting our soul drive is what puts us in touch with the ability to surpass our limitations. Through sharing, we elevate our consciousness to a place where we can break down the walls in our life, extending ourselves to conquer things that we once felt were impossible. If you want to become limitless, share as much as possible. Have you ever noticed how happiness is often fleeting? It goes away. No matter how elevated or how elated you become, eventually your mind finds something to worry about, finds something wrong, replaces the happiness with this problem over here, this fire that's burning over on the side. Sometimes we even create problems that don't exist by saying things like, oh my God, what if? What do you mean, what if? What if not? Why would you worry about something that hasn't even begun to happen yet? Why would you create a problem where there isn't one? Because a lot of us don't know how to be in a quiet mind. That's uncomfortable. I had girls, first-year students, when I taught them how to meditate, some of them couldn't go 15 seconds before they're like, oh my God, I'm going crazy, I got to get out of here. Why? What's wrong? I can't stand my mind racing when you start making me get quiet. It goes crazy in there. Because of this, the mind isn't used to being quiet. People create drama because they need something to be bitter about, some reason, something, some fire, something to focus on, something. This is why people get addicted to drama. This is why people gossip. This is why people do a lot of the things they do, and they do it and they don't even know that they're doing it. And it's hurting everyone around them, and they don't know that. So one of the most self-destructive tendencies that we have as humans is not allowing ourselves to be happy. This is because there is always some voice in our head that is always telling us about things we should worry about, things that might be wrong, things that we should be worried about, rushing to. The moment that we achieve this sense of true joy, then all of a sudden the whisper kicks in and says, yeah, dude, but what about this? Now you need to do this. Now that you've cleaned the house, you better go out and clean the garage. Now there's always something that we think needs to be done, needs to be worried about. Our job is to consciously choose to have this sense of inner peace from here over this voice of negativity. We don't want to listen to the negative voice of the ego. We want to listen to the positive voice of the Spirit, the one that's in love, the one that wants us to grow, the one that wants us to be at peace, the one that wants us to have harmony and balance in our lives. A life of happiness lies within our own hands. The thing is that we each, and in our own mind, of course, if we can quiet it, each of us has to choose it. Happiness is a choice. It is not something that is conditional. You only think it is because you've been living in level 1 consciousness where it's either, sometimes that's good and sometimes it's bad. And we swing back and forth like a pendulum as life happens. So have you ever noticed that no matter how much that we try to battle our negativity, there's always more to work on? And once that work is overcome, a new challenge pops up. There's another one waiting just around the corner, and so on as we move through the circle of life. You do not have to spend your life out here on this outside circle battling all of your things and trying to control your happiness. All you have to do is realize that it's all an illusion. And if you go inward and find your spiritual self, you will not even have to mess with what's out here to be happy. You will just choose to be happy. And that's the choice that you need to be working on making. In order for us to reach our full potential, there's always going to be something for us to rise above. I give you the Tower of Power. It is a natural order of this world that we will be pushed to grow. The game is constant. We can feel frustrated, victimized by it, but all of us, we have to ultimately realize that we are about achieving the pinnacle, the ultimate. And we do that by overcoming and letting go of negativity, grief, pain, suffering, all the things that hold us back in our life. Sometimes we think that, I'll share when I have more. And the whole Kabbalist and this whole secret law of attraction says, no, share now, and that's how you get more. And that works for money, love, happiness, joy, friendships, all of it. We don't understand. We don't share because we think that we've been blessed with something and we want to give. We share because it is a mechanism by which we can receive more. I already talked about this, the law of attraction. Give and you will receive. It's a legitimate law that the ancients talk about, and they even wrote a book about it called The Secret, if you have a tendency to want to read those kind of things. So it's all a paradox. One, we really have to practice to see the results in order to see them and believe them. We all come from a place of lack in level 1 consciousness. Oh my God, there's not enough. What if I run out? So we don't give, we don't share. Therefore, we limit what we can receive, and we don't understand that. On the other hand, if we give of our time, if we give of our tools, if we give of ourself, our knowledge, our wisdom, our love, our happiness, our joy, we get it back in spades, and that's the way that this works. We're almost out of time, so I'm going to skip through randomly. The secret to getting ahead is first to get started. If you want to raise your elevated consciousness from here to here, you say, oh my God, that's such a long journey. How could I possibly navigate all that? The secret is to begin, to start. Okay. Let's see. This goes on and on for another 30 slides, and we have 3 minutes. So I'm going to jump. I guess this is the important part. Wake up. Realize your inner self. Realize that there is this part of you inside of you that is waiting for you to call it. Knock and I will answer. He wasn't lying to you. He was teaching you how to find the inner kingdom, this higher self, this spiritual piece of you called the soul, which lives and resides in every one of us, breathed into us in the book of Genesis, which animates these bodies of carbon and water. This is the essence of who we are, and this is the essence of who we need to learn how to become. Now, I'm going to take just a second and explain to you the irony and the greatness of all of this. Imagine that you were God. In the beginning, we're told that it is nothing but the great void, and only God existed. Can you imagine this? So let's liken that to thought, pure energy, right? Nothing but the thoughts that you would have if you were to close your eyes and experience the blackness and the void. Now, if you go through the phases of creation, we go through, and at first he creates the realm, the heaven, the angels, right? Separated pieces of himself, created the angels, and they were all servants. Then what do? Then we create the second dimension is, the first dimension is God, the second dimension is the angels, the third dimension is physical existence, the earth, us. And we get breathed life into us, this soul, this spirit, this peace, this essence, this being, which then has to, the mission. You will go forth. You will be kicked out of the garden. You will not be able to come back in. I'm going to put a flaming sword there to protect the entrance so you can't come back. And what are we going to do? We're going to go around throughout this life and we're going to experience life. We're going to make choices. We're going to have experiences. We're going to have free will with the ultimate goal to do what? To overcome fear, to overcome ego, to overcome self, and to learn how to love again and love the way or like the Creator. This is the story of all of this. And if you imagine this concept and what we're talking about, and if we talk about concepts like heaven on earth and thy kingdom come and things of this nature, what we start realizing is that we are the ones who control, we are the ones who have this in our hands, we are the ones that have the ability to create this place and this thing. So in order for us to be the co-creators that we are taught to be, what does that mean? That means that we are imbued with this inner spirit, but we're also given free will, personality, and the ego self to make these choices. Every choice that you make, every experience you've ever had, gets to be experienced by the collective through, remember I gave you the example of what I thought God was, the glasses, and you fill up the glasses and they go around and then you take them back and dump them back in the water and that now you have an enriched ocean. That's what I think the soul is. I think we go and experience life and we overcome all these objects and all these obstacles and we make all these choices and we have all these experiences and all these emotions and all these variations. And then we take it back and we share it with the collective, with the whole. I have my negative experiences and come and heal them, and I come and speak with you, hoping that you won't have to have the same negative experience, right? Isn't that what you do with your kids? Well, I made that mistake when I was your age. I'd recommend you do this. Trying to help them avoid some of the pain and the suffering and the pitfalls. So as co-creators, the whole story of this is God continues to expand, consciousness continues to expand. We still know the known universe is continuing to expand. We don't have any idea how far we might be able to expand. If we at birth were taught in all of these ways and raised in all of these ways, how enlightened might we become? If the person who loved the most got to live in the biggest house and made the most money, what kind of love would a person be capable of? Look how many billionaires have created themselves over money. Look at the things that we've established out of money. Imagine the changes and the differences that could be. My whole conversation with you is that all of this, in the end, is how we co-create this world that we live in and this earth. And all of this, in my opinion, will be changed as we start growing and changing, and we have the ability to direct where we go, where we end up. The whole circle from the singularity to the end. It begins in the garden, and where does it end? It ends in New Jerusalem, where God was living among the people. I think that's what this is. When we realize and recognize the God portion of us, the soul, the higher self, the inner spirit, this essence of ourselves, and that is what we're driven by, will God not live among us? I think it's just that simple. So my process and my conversation is this whole thing. I just want you to take away from this presentation and everything that I've taught you throughout these 4 courses. You have choice. Everything that you do, everything that you want to achieve is within your realm and within your reach. I ask you to shed and to cut away the negativity and all the fear and the elements that stop you from getting where it is you want to be, that hold you down, that weight you down. I want you to float like a balloon to the top of this tower as fast as you possibly can. But it doesn't come without the work of getting rid of what weighs you down. And this is your work. And this is why we're here. So, with that said, this is my presentation to you on the circles of life. And I hope it was meaningful, and I hope it helps some of you. And if you have any questions, you are welcome to email me. You are welcome to call me. You are welcome to text me. I may or may not end up getting requested to do additional teachings. Some people have requested conscious relationships. I actually wrote a chapter on that where we apply these basic principles to relationships on how to be a better partner instead of how to point the finger at your partner and what they're doing wrong. So those kinds of topics and conversations.
Do you offer group classes like that?
You know, the answer is I do now. And they said we can do them here. So if we have a group, an interest in doing it, I will be happy to come and lead and have a group where you guys talk about your issues and your problems, and we can use the model or the basics, and we can just share and talk about these things and work through them and work them out to help you overcome whatever it is you're stuck on. Because here's unfortunately the age-old truth. If you're the one having the problem that's bouncing back and forth here, everyone outside of you will be able to see the dynamic that you're trapped in, except you. Because we're not attached emotionally. We're not getting beat up back and forth and bouncing around on the circle. We can look at it and give you the best advice. And this is why people always say, I can't take my own advice because I'm emotionally attached to my advice. But I'm not when I give it to you. So that's, yes, please just let Sarah and Ellen know what your wishes are and get a group together and start it forming, and I would be happy to participate and work within that. Any other questions? Thank you very much. And I do, if any of you want, I brought a few more books. If any of you want to read my first book, it's a little old, but it might be what you need to hear or read at this particular time and where you are. You're welcome to have one. It's absolutely my gift. Other than that, thank you.